Have you ever heard the saying, sow a thought, reap a deed, sow a deed, reap a habit, sow a habit, reap a destiny? On today's edition of Truth for a New Generation, we're going to talk about how beliefs drive behaviors. We're going to talk about worldview. Hi, Alex McFarland here on Truth for a New Generation. So glad you're with us. Perhaps you've heard in the news or in the media the term worldview. And on today's show, I want to talk about worldview because we're really in a battle of worldviews in our culture, and it does affect each and every one of our lives. To sort of set the table for a talk about worldview, I want to give an illustration that I thought was very interesting. I was reading about a lake in northern Minnesota. Not a huge lake, about 1.8 square miles in surface area. It's called Lake Itasca. Now, this lake was discovered in 1832 by an explorer named Henry Schoolcraft, and he named it Lake Itasca out of two Latin words, veritas and caput. Now, the last few letters of veritas, itas, and the first two letters of the word caput, ca, Itasca, means true head, the true head. Now, the true head of what? Let me explain. Because this small lake, which averages about 20 feet deep, not a huge body of water, but it flows down through 32 states, draws water from 32 states. And there are all kind of tributaries that flow into this. Small tributaries, nothing all that huge. But this lake that flows 2,200 miles southward, you probably know, it becomes an Indian word for great river, Mississippi, and empties into the Gulf of Mexico, a watershed, not 1.8 square miles in surface area, but 1.2 million square miles. It's amazing how something rather small in its beginning has a huge, huge outcome. And of course, the Mississippi in places is more than a mile wide. And then the Gulf of Mexico, you can't even see across. It's as big as the ocean almost. And that's very much like worldview. In fact, beliefs shape behaviors, perspectives, the way we look at life. And it's interesting to me how small, seemingly insignificant assumptions or bits of data or even misinformation, things true or false, things accurate or inaccurate, things that are accurate self-perceptions or wildly inaccurate, maybe even delusional, they shape worldview. Our views about the country, our views about law and politics, certainly our views about faith and religion and values and morals, all of these amalgams turn out to shape our life. Just like a tiny stream could become the Gulf of Mexico, ultimately our beliefs and ultimately our values, our priorities, our behaviors, they have huge outcomes. And let me just say this regarding worldview. One of the things that certainly Christianity speaks about is the fact that it's very important the person we're becoming. We really are not only a physical body engaging in external behaviors, we're a soul becoming something that will last for all of eternity. Now, there was a very famous book written several years ago by a man named James Sire. In my opinion, it's one of the best books ever written on worldview. And it's called The Universe Next Door. And the premise of the title is this: somebody might live 50 feet away, but it's a whole different universe. And he defines worldview in this way. Listen to this. He said, it's a set of assumptions which you hold about the basic makeup of the world. Now, let me give the fine print that Sire inserts in these sentences. Your worldview is a set of assumptions which may be true, may be partially true, might be entirely false, which you hold consistently or inconsistently, consciously or subconsciously, about the basic makeup of the world. Now, what are those beliefs? Origin, purpose, destiny, things about truth, things about where we came from, things about who God is. Now, there are a number of worldviews fighting for the soul of America today. One is relativism, the idea that there are no moral absolutes. One is really hedonism, the view that the highest good of life is just to seek pleasure. There's the view pluralism, that all beliefs are equally valid and equally true. There's the view egalitarianism. I was just reading a news story last night about a meltdown some celebrities are having over whether or not men and women are actual objective differences. So stay tuned, because when we come back, we're going to talk about worldview and unpack the beliefs that shape our world and even our own lives. Don't go away.
We live in an ever-changing culture that continues to fall away from its moral foundations. The AFA Journal provides a Christian perspective on current issues that are important to your family. Produced by the American Family Association, this monthly magazine is full of articles and stories about people who are making a difference in their community and around the world. Sign up today and receive a free 6-month subscription. Visit afajournal.org or call 1-800-326-4543.
Welcome back to Truth for a New Generation. Alex McFarland here. We're talking about worldview, and I'm so excited about the guest that you're about to meet, who has some wonderful insights on the subject of worldview. Tracey Lynn Russell, I first met, about a year ago at a broadcasters convention, and I was just amazed at her breadth of knowledge and her ability to communicate, to inform, and to inspire. Her website is Tracey Lynn Russell. She's got a lot going on. God is using her in amazing ways. But I wanted to have her on TNG today. And Tracey, thank you so much for making time to be with us on the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Alex. It's really a privilege to be here with you today.
Hey, I'm kind of jealous because where I am in North Carolina, it's pretty cold and rainy. And I can see from where you are, it looks like you're in some pretty nice weather.
I am. I'm in the Sunshine State, and we do call it that for a reason, because it is a gorgeous day here. So thanks for saying that.
Well, you know, the 10th commandment says thou shalt not covet. And so I'm sort of jealous of that nice weather where you are. But before we talk about worldview, hey, give people kind of a synopsis about all that you do. And I know you've got a lot going on, so bring us up to speed, Tracey.
Yeah, so I'm a podcaster, and really my passion is to see people empowered in the story that God has given them to share, Alex. And that passion really came out of an experience in Rwanda almost a year ago. And so I offer workshops. I offer the Art of My Story workshop. I help people through my podcast, The Heart of the Story, with Tracey Lynn Russell. And really what I'm hoping to see is, my vision is to see 100,000 people empowered in their story into kingdom action, into today's current world. And so,
and you really do have a powerful story. And folks, I want to encourage you to familiarize yourself with Tracey and all that she's doing. But let's talk about Rwanda, because you saw firsthand the impact that worldview can have in the lives of people, didn't you?
I really did. And Alex, just to share briefly, when I went to Rwanda, I went for a leadership conference, and I thought, I don't know why I'm going to this. I didn't consider myself a leader. I was like many of your viewers, where I just consider myself a strong Christian with a message in my heart. And when I went to Rwanda, I walked into the Genocide Museum, and I brought these words to read to you, Alex, from the Genocide Museum. I wrote them down, and I will never forget them. But basically the words said, right as you walk in, an intense propaganda campaign began to persuade and compel the majority of the population why they should see their friends, their neighbors, even their family members as enemies, and distrust them. And when the genocide was underway, radio and television was used to incite hatred and to justify the actions of killing over 1 million people in 3 months. And my heart absolutely stopped. And with that moment, I thought, God, help me do whatever it is in this world to make sure that your story is louder than the hatred that incited this genocide. And Alex, all I can tell you is the sights and the sounds that I saw that day were like hell unleashed on this earth. And when I was sitting in Rwanda, I pulled up my phone, like so many Americans, and I looked on Facebook and I saw the words we were saying and the extreme language and hate. The hate was starting just then. And I thought, oh no, my friends in America don't realize what we're doing, how responsible we are for the worldview and for the words that we're speaking out into our generation. And, I think at that moment, I really thought, whatever I can do to help change that narrative, we just have to be so careful, Alex. We don't realize what's on the other end of the propaganda. And I see a lot of that today going on. I see this going on in the media, inciting hatred, making assumptions about people that is the awful story being shared. And I believe that as Christians, we're good-willed people and we have a good story to share that can actually help people and save lives. So
You're right, Tracy. As you and I are recording this in the upper Northwest, Portland, Seattle, Sacramento, there is rioting going on that's been going on for more than 3 months. And even in the last 24 hours, they've torn down statues of, oddly enough, Abraham Lincoln and Teddy Roosevelt. Two people, if ever there were people that did champion civil rights and moral truth and were people of goodwill, Abraham Lincoln, my goodness, windows are being shattered, businesses vandalized, statues being toppled. The anarchy that we've seen in America over the summer of 2020 and now into the fall, does that concern you, Tracy, because it was a similar state of chaos that brought in such death and genocide in Rwanda? Are we dangerously teetering toward an irreversible state of anarchy, in your opinion?
What I think is irresponsible is the way that journalism and the media is focusing on those negative stories and absolutely not presenting the positive stories. And the average American, Alex, who is probably listening to you and I, is probably a person of goodwill who has amazing stories of the generosity, of the hope. We are people called to hope and to share hope. And I can tell you, for every negative story I've heard, there's thousands of stories of wonderful things happening that aren't being shared. And so I think it's really irresponsible of the media to just continue to focus on really the extremes on either camp. And I believe that the solution is that every person listening today can be empowered, whether you see yourself as a leader or not. We've all been given a story by God, and we're responsible for that. And if we just take even our social media, our friends, our conversations around us, and we start sharing God's story and the hope that we have, I believe we can come against the noise, the negativity, and this whole environment of nasty name calling.
Tracy, you're a very positive person, and one of the things from when you and I we've done some radio together, and I've followed the trajectory of your career. You are a very positive person. You do a series of tutorials to help people learn how to communicate. And tell us about those a minute, if you would.
Yeah, so what I've created is a program called The Art of My Story. And a story is really one of the oldest ways that God's given us to communicate to the heart, to speak information into people's minds, and to send other people into action. A story is very non-threatening. It's just your story. It's just a simple way of communicating hope and truth without, getting into an aggressive stance with people. But what I'm so excited about, Alex, is that God's really called me right now to tell everyone that they are called to communicate. We're hosting a free summit. It's coming up October 23rd. And anybody, and I know there's people listening that have this message in their heart and they want to share it, but anybody that really wants to be a part of being called to communicate into this generation can come hear from experts. You're one of them, Alex, that's going to be on our panel. They're going to be on a live Zoom call, empowering, equipping, and really helping people find their voice, refine their message, and really live to share the story of what God's doing in this world. So I'm really
How
excited.
important is worldview in what you do and how you serve your family and you serve others and you serve our nation, really? The core values that you believe, the core values that anybody believes, what's the link between your beliefs and your life, Tracy?
Right. I mean, worldview is really the lens that we perceive everything through. It's a culmination of our experiences and then God's truth and how we're interpreting that. And there's never been a more important time, Alex, for us to be listening to people like you and really refining our worldview and not looking to the media to be negatively influenced and not to be listening. We've got to have a huge filter on right now so that our assumptions about what's going on in the world are based on God's truth and they lift others up towards God's truth. And I just think that it would be so easy right now to have our own worldview skewed by what the media is saying or by all this negativity and the awful story. But we are people of hope. We know the truths. We know that there's country, our faith is built on principles, and those are rock solid, and those don't change when the president, those don't change. Those are rock solid. And we have that hope and we have that comfort. And those are the things that we can transmit to the next generation. And those are the things that are most important.
What about the beliefs during the middle of life's tragedies, the deep valleys of life? How important is it to go into the hard times with a worldview that will enable you to emerge stronger on the other side?
Well, I think for many people, we're in that story right now, myself included. We're in an uncertain time. We're in an uncertain story, an unprecedented story. But here's the truth of what we believe. God is not done with the story of our lives. He is writing the next chapter before he is at work. He is not affected by the government and their problems right now, but our hope is secure and our future is secure because of who God is and because of the truth of his word. We are secure people. And so we have to continually go back and ground ourselves in that truth and continually make sure that our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions are grounded on a Christian worldview and not the worldview that's being shared in the media, which is completely different than the hope of our Christian faith.
Well, what's your advice for somebody who maybe they're not especially religious or spiritual, maybe not a Christian yet, and they're wondering, hey, I don't know what to believe. I don't know whom to trust. Where do you start in building a godly worldview?
I think we just start in relationships with people and seeking out relationships and sharing our story, finding a friend or finding someone of faith. If someone's dabbling and they don't understand what's going on, I'd love for them to invite them to call to communicate, to sit in our seminar and hear from experts and people that want to pour into them. And also, I think that our church, I just want to champion the church because I feel like in so many ways, she's taking a hit for the team right now. And our churches are strong. Our pastors are strong. There are people of faith everywhere in this country that are showing up on Zoom calls, on whatever the regulations is. They're pouring their hearts out to keep our church strong. And so church is another great local community way to find information if someone's seeking that truth.
We've only got about 30 seconds, but do you have a particular verse that especially keeps your heart upbeat and uplifted?
I do, and it's the one from Ephesians that I don't, it's the hope to which we have been called. We have been called to hope. And so we have the greatest story ever told. We have the hope of Jesus Christ, and sharing that story is able to change the world. And we can make a difference.
Hey, thanks so much. We're just about out of time, folks. Tracey Lynn Russell, find her online. She's amazing. Stay tuned. Truth for a New Generation is back with more on Worldview.
There is something welcoming about prepared places. At the Cove, we extend that welcome every single day. From the panoramic views, chef-crafted meals, and spacious meeting rooms, to our serene mountain lodging, stone fireplaces, and inviting rocking chairs. Our setting, carved into 1,200 wooded acres of the Blue Ridge Mountains, and our personalized service will ensure that your group's visit is both memorable and renewing. No wonder we find such great comfort when Jesus says his Father's house has many rooms that he is preparing for us. So, the table is being set. Hearthside, the fires are ablaze. The stage is lit, the mics checked. Come, experience this place prepared for you and your group at the Cove.
In the Old Testament book of Proverbs, chapter 23, verse 7, the Bible says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Hi, welcome back. And we're talking about worldview. And you know, that's an amazing truth. As a person thinks in their heart, so is he. Now, centuries later, modern psychology would verify that beliefs drive behaviors, thoughts, values, priorities, memories, our will, our ability to make moral choices. All of these things combine to drive what ultimately becomes our life. And so what we think and what we believe and what we really internalize and at times fixate on, it is very, very important. A number of philosophers, both Christian and non-Christian, have written books about worldview and the consequences of ideas. And it's amazing because the wheels of culture and academics and politics and just society in general, sometimes it moves very slowly, but philosophies that begin to take root in the classroom decades later bear fruit in the culture for good or for ill. Now, we're living in a time where I mentioned it earlier before our interview with Tracey Lynn Russell, but there are a number of philosophies that are very predominant in the culture. And I assure you, having spoken at more than 200 American universities, these philosophies are very prominent, even if people don't know the names of these belief systems or necessarily all of the implications. But if I could name one worldview that overwhelmingly shapes this nation and really much of the world today, it's relativism. The idea that there are no transcendent objective truths, but we all really kind of make our own truths. Everything is perspectival and relative. And secularism, that our life is really to be lived not in light of God or any kind of ultimate theological truths, but it is just man and culture that makes the world go round. Hedonism, living for pleasure, because after all, if this life is all we have, you may as well go for the gusto. And, you know, you only live once. YOLO is what a lot of kids text each other. You only live once. And so it may as well be a hedonistic, pleasure-driven life. And then, of course, there's the worldview egalitarianism. And as the homosexual movement and now transgenderism has really mainstreamed itself, now it's very, very not only assumed but really enforced to view the world in egalitarian terms, that there are no differences between men and women. But common sense tells us, and science and biology tells us that there are. Do you know, with the enforced egalitarianism of the modern world, for the first time ever, feelings, emotions trump science. And it's really controlling how people think and definitely how people communicate. I mean, the wrong tweet that runs afoul of one of these philosophies can end somebody's career. That's why George Carlin, the late comedian George Carlin, spoke about political correctness and really the thought police that can just castigate people if they speak out of worldview, out of narrative. He said political correctness is really fascism pretending to be good manners. In other words, we don't want to shame people or hurt their feelings, but sometimes truth, friends, reality mitigates against closely held but erroneous beliefs. So worldview matters, and we challenge you to build your worldview, what? On opinion? No, on truth. And God will bless you as you do it.
What is the connection between girls losing in sports to males claiming to be female? Planned Parenthood's abortion crusade. And the drive to open America's borders? These tragedies are the result of an ongoing radical war. The new book, Trojan Horses, Exposing the Secret Schemes of the Left, reveals the devious agenda behind the radical strategies that have exacted a huge toll on life and liberty. Discover how clever advocates for socialism, open borders, abortion, and gender confusion deceive and destroy in this richly documented and detailed exposé. Contact us today to receive your copy of Trojan Horses, an insight-packed guide to the schemes targeting your freedom and how to fight back.
What is truth?
What is truth?
truth. Shabam, there it is, the big kahuna, the spicy enchilada, the fizzy lifting drink.
The claim God exists is not a subjective claim.
This is not an evidence problem.
So, like, truth is basically subjective.
Yeah, emotional.
This is Debunk TV.
Hi, welcome back. Alex McFarland here. You know, for 23 years, it's been our privilege to do worldview and apologetics, evangelism, dialogue. Hey, we're just proclaiming the truth and telling people about God and His Word. And we would ask you to pray about helping us, and if you would, invest a donation in the Truth for New Generation Ministries. We want to send you a couple of thank you gifts that we think are pretty cool. The award-winning 21 Questions Your Kids Will Ask About God. It's a book, it's a DVD series. Humbly, let me say it did win the Curriculum of the Year award at the International Christian Visual Media Awards in Ohio a couple of years ago. This set has been used by hundreds of churches. I want to send you one for your gift of at least $50, tax deductible, to Truth for New Generation. And then if you send a gift of at least $75, we include this really cool apologetics t-shirt. Kind of retro, quirky, better living through apologetics. I think it's pretty cool. And hey, you know who helped design this and print it? A kid that was in my youth group like 25 years ago. And so we want to send you these for your tax-deductible gift of at least $25. And I want to thank everybody who's been reading our new book, The Assault on America. Now, listen, I've written 18 books. I never really promote my books all that much. This one I'm promoting, and I'll tell you why. I have no financial stake in this book. I wrote it, did not get a penny, didn't want it. I wrote this for God and country. We talk about the philosophies, the worldviews that are ultimately contributing to the undermining of our nation. And if we don't have a return to God and truth, a revival, we're going to lose our Constitution. Friend, you need to read this book. Now, I praise God on Amazon.com and at Barnes & Noble and many places. The book has been sold out. And so I know delivery is taking longer than usual. I have no control over the delivery times of the online booksellers, but it's by Harrison House Publishers. I wrote this book, the foreword by Will Graham, grandson of Billy Graham, and we talk about what God can do through your life to help make this a better country and to save our precious, free America. So consider getting this book, please. Give it away as gifts, and I would thank you for doing that. And then I want to tell you that we've got a newsletter coming out. Our next newsletter mails out in just about 2 weeks. I want you to get it. I've got a few articles I've written, what we're doing in the ministry. We're on the radio 7 days a week, on the radio, on television, online. And so write to us, if you would, at P.O. Box 485, Pleasant Garden, North Carolina, 27313. I want to send you some envelopes so you can be a part of what God is doing to evangelize the lost, equip the saved, and save America. God bless you.